anyways, this is a practice wushu sword. You see this t-shirt? I'm actually looking at the wrong street. See this t-shirt? I studied wushu for a little while. Let me just pause the singing or the song or whatever. There we go. It's, by the way, it's made out of wood. Okay, it's a practice sword. You don't want people running around the arenas with real swords. Okay. Welcome. Today is Labor Day. I know I'm a little late on producing this video. September the 2nd, and happy Labor Day to everybody. So first things first, let's bring the video down a little bit. There we go. And today's reading from ABAJAM Chronicles, my first book, is Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, Chapter 12. Anyways, yes, I was once going to physiotherapy a number of years ago, and it was an Oriental gentleman, and he actually approached me and says, "Oh, your t-shirt scares me." I said, "Why?" And he says, "Oh, it means something to the effect of, I can beat you up." I don't know what it says, but anyways, yeah, I did try taking wushu for a while, you know, as one of my researches in my book for the martial arts, blah, blah, blah. And, well, because of the arthritis in my feet, doing some of the choreographed moves of Kung Fu sword wushu, it just wasn't going to happen. And at my age, I didn't have the mobility or the agility. Yeah, so my first recommendation to all my readers out there, if you're younger than me, don't get old. Welcome. I have my book here, ready to read. It's a number of chapters. I know, I'm thinking, how can I make these videos more interesting? And because like you're taking anywhere from 15 minutes to half an hour of your day out of your time to watch these. And this weekend I was visiting at my artist friend's house. Her husband is a well-known rock musician in Kitchener. She has this great, big, huge, mammoth German Shepherd. Friendly as heck if it likes you. Playing in the backyard with it. She's got two adorable children. She's a wonderful artist. Great people. And it occurred to me when I got home, I should have taken some video of our together, the pictures that she's drawing for you guys to, you know, give you an idea of what's happening in the progress of my second book. Matter of fact, before I started this video, I was still working on the edits of my second book. It's coming along fine. I should have it finished in a few more days. And by the way, when we came back from the pinery camping, before I start reading, I had contracted poison ivy. Got it all over my my left ankle, around my knee, and a little bit on my waist here, because I had to lay down underneath my trailer as we were draining the water and stuff like that. Wetness, poison ivy on your body, wearing shorts, not good idea. So let's start reading. Okay, bookmark down here. Chapter 12, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. Now, before we read chapter 12, let's go backtrack a little bit. Remember in chapter 11, boys must be boys, where between the distraction of Mindy, who I wasn't about to discuss with my son, and my disproportionately angry blow-up about the modules going to the clinic had utterly slipped my mind. I just have to compensate and work something out if the topic came up between me and Steve's parents. So if you've been reading my book, you'll know that some bizarre things have been happening to Albert. So now he's going to the Vaniers place for dinner. Bill arrived to pick us up within 15 minutes of his son's call. He was still driving my old '83 Chevy Impala. Before we moved down south, we sold it to him as a junker for $150. He had repaired and fully restored the body to almost showroom condition. Only nobody buys a car out of the showroom that's painted flat black. But the black definitely accentuated all the polished chrome. Even the 4-barrel 351 cubic inch short block V8 under the hood sounded throatier than when I owned it. I was totally impressed. "Hey, my friend," he said, speaking to me in his heavily French accented English. "I thought I pick you and the boys up in style, eh? How do you like your old car now? He asked, taunting me with his deep nasal ha ha. I whistled at his handiwork as I climbed into the front seat. The boys got into the back with Ryan, Steve's younger brother, who was sitting unstrapped in the child seat. I said nothing and passed the two inconspicuously wrapped parcels over to the boys in the back. On the way back to the house, he informed us, that while we were gone, Jackie's shift had been moved up into the morning. Any apologies for being late were wholly unnecessary, as she wouldn't be home yet for another half hour. It actually worked out in favor, or for better. No one was available this morning to pick up Stevie. He had to run into town himself early on and get a part at Canadian Tire for a repair job he was working on. Jackie was afraid she might miss you. She have to work the morning. She want to hear all about your wife. Did she find a good job? And about Andrea. How does her judo jiu-jitsu go? And of course, like all women, she want to know how is the little one. What her name again? Oh, yeah, Alison. She is very glad you are all late. So to keep pace in the house, you must stay for dinner and answer all her questions, he pronounced, then broke out in one of his infectious nasal staccato punctuated laughs. You'd have to hear it to believe it. Bill was a gregarious and laid back kind of guy, and always easygoing, but as I said before, too easygoing. As far as I knew, everyone got along with Bill. Regardless of what life threw at him, nothing seemed to faze him. He once confided to me his life's motto was the same as the song sung by Doris Day. Que sera, sera. Whatever will be, will be. He joked that he always left his wife, Jackie, do all the worrying. He said to me at the time, with his distinctive chuckle and a wry smile peeking through that thick, black, well-manicured beard of his, "She is so good at it, why should I interfere?" As for his height, it was never an issue to him. He may have been all of 5 feet 8 inches and rather stocky in appearance, but let no man be deceived. Bill had a brawny, very muscular physique under those loose-fitting work clothes. Working with him once on a house project, I had the opportunity of seeing him without a shirt on. At the time, I thought I was in good shape, and I regularly worked out at the club. I wouldn't want to have to wrestle with him. He was powerful when it came to brute strength. For him, it was something he never felt the need to tout or flaunt. He was more than secure in his masculinity and raised his boys with that self-same attitude in mind. Unfortunately, he forgot to instill in his oldest son, Sean, primarily by his own poor example, any kind of good work ethic or responsibility to others besides himself. Sean was, in more ways than one, the spitting image of his father, and by Steve's account, it sounded like it was too late for Sean to be redeemed, at least in regards to work and familial obligations. On the other hand, according to Jackie, with her deep-rooted faith in God, Sean can still be redeemed, and so she fervently prays for him. This much she has told Bernie and me. She also once told Bernie confidentially she held out more hope and confidence in Stevie becoming a success in life than she did for either her husband or for her oldest son. Stevie, in many respects, often demonstrated personality traits that were more in character with his mother than that of his father. Beyond such personal issues, both Jackie and Bill were an affable couple who made everyone who visited them feel welcome and comfortable in their home. There never seemed to be a shortage of food or hospitality in the Vanier household, nor did they allow the appearance of any needs or wants to become evident while they had guests. It's not that they were too proud to accept charity, they just didn't think it appropriate to burden family and friends with such matters when they were guests in their home. Jackie arrived at the house on cue, just as Bill had predicted. Her tiny Datsun 1200 kicked up a fair amount of dust traveling down the short washboard gravel road that led to their 1.5 acre property. Only 4 other houses were to be found along this dead-end road. She careened into the first driveway and came to a skidding halt. The second driveway, I was told, was reserved for paying customers. It led to Bill's large 2-bay gray cinder block garage, as well as up to the house. Before she arrived, he and I and the boys had briefly walked around the well-treed property. I counted a dozen medium-sized maple and ash dotting the landscape and surveying, as he proudly liked to call it, his new domain. During our brief tour, Bill was saddled, as any proud father could ever be, with his youngest son Ryan, just over 2.5 years old, cradled in his strong right arm. He carried his son as comfortably and as leisurely as I've seen many mothers do. To his credit, I will admit, that was one of his more admirable and noteworthy characteristics. He genuinely loved children and took pleasure in their company. He never found them to be a nuisance. In retrospect, I could never make such a boast, which is one reason Bernie and I, and anyone else who knew the Vaniers, couldn't judge Bill too harshly. Our own skeletons and feelings of guilt precluded it. After dispensing with the obligatory hugs, kisses, and warm greetings from Jackie, who then immediately took possession of Ryan from her husband, we all filed into the house. Ryan had started squirming upon seeing his mother and opted to abandon his father's arm for the softer comfort of his mother. Now the house, both inside and out, was a real fixer-upper, a handyman special, but it was still a far cry better than living in some dilapidated trailer. Personally, I could never understand how anyone could enjoy living in a trailer, or in trailer parks for that matter, especially single-wide ones with no basement. Looking about the house, I could honestly say that with a little cash, a little ingenuity, Bill's penchant for repairing and doing odd jobs, and his knack for scrounging, why in no time this would be a nice house. This would be as nice a house as anything I've lived in. The only impediment to these lofty plans that I had envisioned for them was my inference of them always needing a little cash. Now, as far as I knew, Bill never worked a full-time job for longer than 6 to 8 months in his whole life. While Jackie often worked 2 part-time jobs, Bill would occupy the rest of the time by either being on compensation or collecting unemployment insurance. Once the checks stopped coming in, he'd supplement his income by doing local odd jobs as a handyman and jack of all trades. From what Bernie led me to understand, his side work never proved to be consistent, viable, or definitely non too lucrative. In my opinion, though, she may have stood as tall. In my opinion, though she may have stood as tall as her husband in respect to work and family responsibility, she towered a head taller than him. Hopefully his garage would now change the family's fortunes and relieve some of the burden off Jackie. Jackie, whose family heritage was Scottish, bore the distinctive features and personality traits of familiar people who generally got stereotyped. Hard-working, hard-living, and frugal to a fault. And Jackie did nothing to alter that perception. If anything, she probably contributed to it. It's probably what kept the family afloat and together. She had an abundance of wavy, shoulder-length, rusty red hair with a complexion of perpetually pale, lightly freckled skin. She had strong and comely features with a slightly stout figure, but not at all too fat. It was her hair that should first alert anyone as to her temperament. Being Scottish was the coronation of her legacy that added the unique dimension to an otherwise volatile personality. She only kept that aspect of her personality in check by means of adhering to, whenever convenient, strict religious principles. But when all else failed, she generally made up for it by invoking lots of "Dear God," "Oh, Father," or "Lord, please forgive me." Bill, being a nominal Catholic, only found his wife's paradoxes all too amusing. While she endlessly invoked the name of God for mercy, he tended to use God's name in a more provocative sense. That incensed her to no end. As long as I've known her and Bill, she always attended some local evangelical church, even though she was a baptized Presbyterian. Bill, on the other hand, only frequented Mass when his brother, a Jesuit priest from Quebec, came to visit the family. On those occasions, Jackie always accompanied Bill in the hope he might come under the divine conviction to become the head of a church-going family. But Bill was always ambivalent about discussing religion, even with his brother. I had once had the privilege of meeting Bill's Jesuit priest brother on one of his occasional visits. It was during the time we all still lived in the Dowling area. No, we didn't live in the Dowling area. Actually, the Vaniers lived closer to Chelmsford, along the same river road, but about 3 miles from where we lived. Up there, to residents of Northern Ontario, 2 or 3 miles still make you a neighbor. Anyway, I found him to be quite genuine in his faith, contrary to some Protestant dogma. Intellectually astute and definitely nobody's fool, especially as he succinctly put it to me at the time when it concerned his prodigal brother. Bill never once deceived him with his bogus piety and convenient church attendance whenever he visited, nor was he fooled about his brother's cavalier attitude towards God and laissez-faire approach to spirituality. In truth, Bill's brother the priest and Jackie had more in common with each other than either was willing to acknowledge. Jackie once confessed to Bill that cultural and denominational constraints prevented them from really getting to know each other. Few people knew that Bill's own family background was interracially mixed. He boasted his parents were as French Canadian as Pierre Trudeau, much to the chagrin of separatists in the community and anyone who tended to vote conservative like me. In all truth, his grandmother was pure Ojibwe and his great-grandfather was Métis. He rarely discussed this aspect of his family background, knowing full well the prejudice his son would experience and have to endure. Jackie started work on preparing supper. Up until now, we had primarily engaged in small talk. I discussed the latest family news and any events of importance that might have interested Jackie. They both in turn described what had been happening of late in their lives. The most encouraging news I heard was the steady growth of business coming into Bill's garage. He was actually considering hiring another mechanic in the fall. But only if the business warranted, Jackie was quick to remind him. Maybe somebody, he continued, unfazed by her interruption, who have just completed and passed, of course, the apprenticeship, then maybe I can qualify my garage as having the licensed mechanic. I know more, but I do not have any paper. So what? I will teach the new mechanic and not have to pay him too much, n'est-ce pas? He laughed boisterously at his own perceived business acumen. What with the additional income, Jackie announced, she would soon be quitting one of her part-time jobs. At the end of the summer, Bill said, taking his turn to remind her. Even so, I got to finally enroll in a couple of day classes at the college. I found it comical how they were each vying for what I interpreted as a friendly match, dominance and priority in their conversation with me. It's nice to be the center of attention now and then. As for Jackie, in the past 3 years, she had to juggle her dream of nursing career between working 2 part-time jobs, caring for 4 children, she included Bill in that category, and attending a couple of evening classes at the college. Her brother and sister-in-law, who incidentally was Bill's twin sister, was a nurse. She, along with her husband, a doctor, both worked at Sudbury Memorial Hospital. They were also the ones who had bought them this house. It was the sister who finally convinced Jackie to pursue her dream of becoming a nurse. In fact, Bernie told me just before leaving on my trip with Jason, the buying of the house last year was what saved their marriage. Though enrolling in college was still only part-time, for Jackie it was a new beginning. Who knows, she beamed. Perhaps down the road things might just improve enough for me to eventually go full-time to college. If nothing else, I had to admire Jackie as one determined and very patient woman, especially considering her being married to Bill. Bill was quick to confide in me when I broached the subject earlier on. Yeah, we see marriage therapists. Those guys are jackass. They know nothing about life and marriage. End of discussion. While we adults were talking, Ryan was safely stowed in the playpen, mostly to keep him from underfoot. Jason had long gone with Steve to his bedroom to check out some new computer games he'd recently purchased. Bill, why don't you take Al to the garage and show him around, suggested Jackie. Stevie told me you didn't go inside, just walked around it. I guess I interrupted your tour. Supper will be a while. I'll send the boys to get you when it's ready. Sound good to me, replied Bill. Same with me, I added, and the two of us hurried out of the modestly decorated kitchen. I hadn't failed to notice Jackie's distinctive handiwork in remodeling of the kitchen because everything from the wallpaper to the used appliances was new. On the way to his garage, which was the most imposing building on the property, Bill confessed he doesn't do wallpaper or decorating. As for the kitchen, it was strictly off limits to him. That, my friend, is domain, he stated matter-of-factly. While we were conducting a tour of his garage, which I'll admit impressed me by how well stocked it was, he happened to casually mention that his older brother, who works at Inco up in Levac, just got a big promotion. So now the whole family is big shots. All my three brothers and my sister, and soon also me, he heartily boasted with that distinct nasal laugh. You know, Al, he continued in a more somber tone, this is a good thing. You see my wife, she is much happier now. He heaved a heavy sigh as we worked our way around the degreasing sink. If only my son Sean would come to work with me. I too then would be much happier. At that moment, I recalled a saying that went something like, a parent can only be as happy as their saddest child. Jackie had Stevie, though I wondered if she really had given up on Sean. Bill's despondency over Sean sort of put a damper on the whole tour. I thought I'd offer him a distraction from his personal melancholy and told him to stay put. I was going to retrieve some items from the car and I brought along the car and show him something that was so spectacular it was truly out of this world. Anyways, that ends this week's reading. Next week it's chapter 13, Hell Hath No Fury, like a woman who's Scottish. I hope you enjoyed that, but now it's time for me to go. Anyways, everybody have a wonderful Labor Day weekend.